The headlines. Number 1. An explosion in the north of annexed Crimea has destroyed Russian missiles being transported by rail, Ukraine's defense ministry said. Sri Lanka has secured a $3 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund as it faces its own economic crisis since independence. Police in major US cities are preparing for potential unrest in case ex-President Donald Trump is arrested this week as part of a hush money inquiry. The deal has been nearly a year in the making and a lifeline for the country that has billions of dollars in loans. Foreign Minister Ali Sabri told the reporters the government will raise funds by restructuring state-owned enterprises and privatizing the national airline. However, analysts warned Sri Lanka still faces a tough road ahead. The country's economy has been hit hard by the pandemic, rising energy price, populist tax cuts, and inflation of more than 50%. A shortage of medicines, fuel, and other essentials also helped to push the cost of living to record highs, triggering nationwide protests, which overthrew the ruling government in 2022. As a result, the country defaulted on its debts, with international lenders last May for the first time in its history. We have lived beyond our means, whether we like it or not. These difficult measures, which may be very unpopular, need to be taken, Mr. Sabri said in an interview before the funding was announced. Luckily, most people, other than politically motivated unions, have understood that. I know they are not happy, but they also understand we have no choice, Mr. Sabri mentioned. Earlier this year, the country introduced income taxes for professionals ranging from 12.5% to more than 36%. It also raised other taxes to pay for critical purchases, including food and fuel. This is in stark contrast for the big tax cuts former Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa introduced in 2019, which lost the government income of more than $1.4 billion a year. Andrew Wood, analyst at the S&P Global Rating Agency, said Sri Lanka still faces a long road toward consolidation of its government balance sheet, consistent economic growth, and external stability. We expect the economy to contract again in 2023, albeit at a more modest pace, before returning to growth in 2024. Earlier this month, the IMF said Sri Lanka had secured financing assurance from all its major creditors, including China and India, which paved the way for the bailout. Mr. Sabri said it was a little premature to discuss if China, Sri Lanka's biggest bilateral lender, would consider writing off some of the country's debts. We have the will to pay, but we do not have the capacity to pay. What we are now trying to do is get the capacity back, he also mentioned. That's going to be a very difficult and serious discussion. The Sri Lankan government had initially hoped to agree a new payment plan with China and India by the end of 2022. Beijing's lending to Sri Lanka stands at around $7 billion, while India is owed around $1 billion.
Media has descended on Lower Manhattan. They've been camped out.
Authorities in New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles are ramping up their law enforcement presence. A Manhattan prosecutor may charge Mr. Trump over claims that he paid a porn star to keep quiet about the affair they allegedly had. It would be the first criminal case brought against a former US president. Steel barricades were being erected on Monday outside the Manhattan Criminal Court, where Mr. Trump could be charged, fingerprinted, and photographed if charges are filed this week, as US media wildly anticipate. Increased police presence has also been seen outside Trump Tower in the city. Every member of the New York Police Department, including plainclothes detectives, has been ordered to wear their full uniform on Tuesday and is being placed on standby to mobilize, a police source told CBS. The reporters reported. The NYPD and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force have been in touch with the US Secret Service, whose job it is to protect presidents and former presidents about how a potential arrest might take place. Capitol Police, who protect lawmakers on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., plan to issue an emergency declaration on Tuesday, a congressional source told CBS. The order aims to increase coordination with other law enforcement agencies. More Civil Disturbance Office will also be on standby, though the congressional source said there was no specific threat and that the order was proactive. In Los Angeles, the LAPD and federal officials were preparing for a pro-Trump protest on Tuesday outside a federal building, the reporters reported. US intelligence officials have detected an uptick in online threats against legal and government officials since Mr. Trump wrote online on Saturday that he expected to be arrested on Tuesday, according to CBS. Most of the threats were against Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, the man widely expected to file charges against Mr. Trump. On Saturday, the same day Mr. Trump posted that his supporters should protest, Mr. Bragg sent an email to staff. "We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York," the prosecutor wrote. Why is Mr. Trump under investigation? The grand jury has been set up by Mr. Bragg to determine whether there is enough evidence to indicate Mr. Trump. The Stormy Daniels case centers on how Mr. Trump reimbursed his former lawyer Michael Cohen after he paid Mr. Daniels $130,000 to keep quiet ahead of the 2016 presidential election about an alleged affair years earlier with Mr. Trump. The former president has denied any such relationship with Mr. Daniels. The record for the payment reimbursing Mr. Cohen says it was for legal fees. Prosecutors could argue this amounts to Mr. Trump falsifying business records. That is a misdemeanor in New York, though it could be upgraded to a felony, a more serious case, legal analysts say. The Secret Service agents assigned to protect Mr. Trump will stay with him during any arrest, the reporters said. Other US media say there will be no prep work when a handcuffed suspect is publicly marched by officers to face charges. In the latest hearing in the grand jury investigation on Monday, a Trump legal ally testified to push back against evidence provided by a key prosecution witness. Robert Costello sought to discredit Mr. Cohen, who claims the former president was aware of the hush money payment to Mr. Daniels. Mr. Costello told the reporters after emerging from 2 hours of testimony, "I told the grand jury that this guy, Mr. Cohen, couldn't tell the truth if you put a gun to his head." Mr. Costello claimed Mr. Cohen had once told him that Mr. Trump was not aware of the payment to Mr. Daniels. In an interview, Mr. Cohen hit back saying that Mr. Costello, who used to be his legal advisor, lacks any sense of veracity. Mr. Trump has vowed to continue his campaign to become the Republican nominee in the 2024 presidential election if he is indicted. But 44% of Republicans said he should drop out of the presidential race if charged, a Reuters or Lapsos poll found on Monday. The Russian-installed head of the city of Dzhankoi said the area had been attacked by drones. Ukraine announced the explosions, but as is normal, did not explicitly say it was behind the attack. It confirmed it would be a rare foray by Ukraine's military into Crimea, which has been annexed since 2014. The explosions continue the process of Russia's demilitarization and prepares the Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea for deoccupation, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's statement said. Kiev said the missiles had been intended for use by Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Ihor Ivan, the Russia-installed administrator, said a 33-year-old man had been taken to hospital after suffering a shrapnel injury from a downed drone. He made no mention of any military targets being damaged. Several buildings caught fire and the power grid was damaged, Mr. Ivan was quoted as saying by local media. Russia last blamed Ukraine for carrying out a drone attack on the Black Sea Fleet in the Crimean port city of Sevastopol in October 2022. It said 9 drones had been used in a strike which damaged a warship. Ukraine did not claim responsibility for the attack.